Today's Outrider, someone who operates on the fringes or in advance of the main group, individuals who are pioneering or leading in a particular field, especially those who are seen as ahead of their time or outside the mainstream. Welcome to Outrider in Conversation. I'm David DeFazio, co-founder of Wyoming Whiskey. In this series, I chat with individuals who represent the spirit of Outrider. Ian Walsh is a renowned professional surfer known for riding the world's biggest and most challenging waves. We're sitting directly above the surf in Laguna Beach, California, to hear Ian's take on the state of big wave surfing, ocean conservation, and his deep connection with the mountains of Wyoming. One of the reasons why we're here is because of our chance meeting, this past winter in Jackson Hole when we were up on the hill doing avalanche mitigation with Ski Patrol. And I didn't know who you were at the time. I mean, you were in all our ski gear and stuff. And I remember Drew said, hey, Ian Walsh is going to tag along with us. And I'm like, who? I'm like, really? And, you're just a regular guy.
I'm kind of a naturally curious person. So I'm very interested in other industries and what other people do. And I think that leads to meeting a lot of very fun people and having conversations with them, which is kind of that morning we had together on the mountain.
Oh, for sure. It was pretty intense. And the intensity of that can be compared to the intensity of what you do. And it's just very interesting being a hack surfer myself. At least I understand the very, very, scant amount of it to be able to talk a little bit about it. And I've learned a lot about you since then. Born in Rhode Island, you then moved out to Maui, and Maui's home for you, right?
Maui's home, yep. I spend a lot of time traveling, and I have throughout most of my career, but my parents moved to Maui and made that happen when I was a really young boy, and then I grew up there. So a lot of my early years and I guess the evolution as a surfer were kind of molded in Maui.
I think you really break the mold when it comes to surfers in many ways, and in the most complimentary way. We could think about Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and you think of Spicoli, right? That's going to be the most stereotypical thought or image that you get of a surfer, but you're a valedictorian of your high school class.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, and that was very prominent when I was growing up, was this, I guess, thought and this premise that all surfers were like that, kind of like that Spicoli image. And I almost took that as a challenge going to school, to where I wanted to be able to excel in both the ocean and be able to excel in school and kind of break that mold in a way. So it's kind of on par with what we're talking about here with your whiskey, with the Outrider. It's like kind of a different way of being viewed as a surfer, and kind of changing what some stereotypes might kind of put a label on what a surfer would be like.
So the big wave aspect is the most compelling thing when it comes to fear, adrenaline, and whatnot. And I'd like to figure out, what is it? How do you manage that? I can only imagine, having myself gone over the falls on a 1 foot overhead wave and thinking I was going to drown, thinking about you being on a 60-foot face and, going over the falls. I mean, how does that work for you? I mean, is it adrenaline? Is it fear that drives you? Is it fear that keeps you honest? What is all that?
I think it's a combination of everything. Like, in a way, you need that fear. Like, that means it's real. That means things are happening. And that helps you. And I think once you understand what that feels like, that can propel you forward once you harness it. And there is adrenaline. In that same way, that helps you be a little bit stronger, have a quicker response. You have more peripheral vision. Everything's working at a much higher rate. And I think for me, growing up, you learn through exposure how to enhance that and ride that. Like, I still get scared every time I go out. I'm still nervous, I'm anxious, but you realize the more you do it and the more you stress and stimulate those responses, that you need it.
Walsh's involvement in snowboarding and his presence at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort exemplify his influence across different extreme sports. His ability to excel in multiple disciplines make him a unique and influential figure in the broader action sports community. Through his fearless approach to big wave surfing, innovative training methods, environmental advocacy, and cross-disciplinary influence, Ian Walsh embodies the qualities of an outrider, constantly pushing the limits and setting new standards in his field. Back to the absolutely terrifying thought of going over the falls on one of these big waves, how long might you be held down in that situation where it's very dynamic, heart rate elevated, et cetera?
Underwater, your heart rate is elevated. The length of time can vary dependent on what wave it is and then what the swell is. So some waves, the hold down might only be 3 to 10 seconds. Sometimes that can be 10 to 20 seconds. Sometimes that can be in excess of 20 seconds. And if you're getting past that 15-second mark underwater with an elevated heart rate in that violent turbulence, then those bells are starting to go off in your head.
So let's leave the terror of that thought and let's move into nutrition. That sounds a little light.
Sounds more fun.
Are you one of these athletes that can just take in whatever trash and garbage and McDonald's and perform at the highest level, or are you focused on your nutritional intake?
Definitely not that I can take in anything I want. I'd say I'm like really focused on food all year, but my particular programming is seasonal. So my nutrition in winter is a little bit different in summer, where I enjoy like the balance of everything. I'm a very, very big fan of food, and almost to like a geeky nerd level of interest in food and trying different cuisines and learning recipes. And I think with my, I guess, curiosity for that, I'll spend some of the summer months kind of exploring that and not being too tight on a diet.
So the focus on nutrition, is that what led you into cooking? Because I understand you're quite the chef.
I don't know if I'm quite the chef. I'd say I enjoy cooking and I have a natural curiosity for food and learning recipes. And I think that's kind of followed a lot of things in my life. But I think with cooking, it's very fun for me. And I don't mind stumbling my way through a new recipe and learning something. And I like to learn something from beginning to end. And it's been something that's almost meditative for me.
And I believe you've worked with Travis Rice, professional snowboarder, also a Red Bull athlete, on ocean. You've been collecting samples of microplastics.
Yeah, that was a whole separate project. So Travis and I are good friends. We met a long time ago, and there's very, very similar age, and he's done a long life in the mountains, and I've done a long life in the ocean, but there's a lot of overlap because I love the mountains, he loves the ocean, so it's a lot of time we get to spend together. And one project we came together on was sailing from Tahiti to Hawaii, and we were going to be in a really remote part of the Pacific that doesn't get much people around it that often. So we were able to do a program with adventure scientists where we're able to test samples every 100 nautical miles through this sailing adventure we were on, to bring back these samples every 100 nautical miles, 22 of them in total, to test for plastics in the ocean. And that was really eye-opening for me because we're in these really remote parts of the Pacific, like as removed from civilization as you could possibly be, like really, really conscious about what you're cutting on the cutting board in the galley, because if you cut your finger off, you're like you're
in trouble.
2 weeks from any hospital.
Yep. And
realizing how far removed from any civilization we are, and through this study we did, we learned that in 73% of those samples, there were plastics and microplastics in the samples.
That's crazy.
And we're in like the most remote parts of the Pacific. So it just kind of highlighted the point that as surfers, like just trying to cut down on single-use plastics and just take care of the places we live, because it is being affected very far from where we are through what we're doing at the beaches.
The most rewarding wave that you've ridden in your career was what?
I think the most rewarding wave that I've ridden is the next one.
Interesting.
Like, I feel like that's what keeps us surfing, is that constant look over the horizon for what's next and what there might be, and that's what's exciting about surfing. But if I had to choose one wave,
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
If I had to choose one wave, I would say, I think the one that stands out for me right now the most is one that I had in the Jaws contest that really felt like a culmination of every experience I had that was amazing and every experience I've had that was horrendous in the ocean, all coming together and culminating into one ride. And it was a very, very rare setup under a lot of pressure in an event with everything happening at full speed, and the wave set itself up, and I remember committing to the wave and looking at it and almost thinking it looked unmakeable, but something just felt like I had it. And I can still remember like digging my toes into the board and the wax and driving the rail down the line to try to get enough speed. And as it hit the reef, it did a really rare setup for Jaws, and it hit basically the entire wave. It connected together in one barrel ride on a massive wave, and it was almost like time just slowed down for me in a different sense than any other wave I've had in my entire life. So I think that one still stands out and makes the hair on the back of my neck stick up, because it was a lot of things coming together in such a short amount of time. Like every experience, both good and bad, all culminating in one wave.
To Jaws.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Ian.
Pleasure.
Walsh has made a name for himself by tackling some of the largest and most challenging waves in the world. He has competed in numerous prestigious surfing competitions and has been featured in various surf films and documentaries. While he is primarily known for his accomplishments in surfing, Walsh is also an avid snowboarder and has spent considerable time at Jackson Hole. His connection with the resort highlights the crossover between different extreme sports and showcases his versatility and passion for adventure. This has been Outrider in Conversation. Thanks for joining us.